What is up, you guys? It is Breyonna, and today we are testing out the brand new Baroque palette from Colourpop from the Dark Blooms collection. I actually picked this one up after testing out the Ornate palette, and if you'd like to see that video, I'll have it linked in the description box down below for you. But what I really like about this palette is not only the packaging, like this whole collection has the most stunning packaging I've ever seen. Like, I don't know if you guys can see, but it's like a floral with like gold accenting. It's honestly stunning. And when you open this one up, the color story is like these really cool, icy, kind of like grayish blues. Just has a really unique vibe to it. However, before we test out this palette right here, if you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and also give this video a like. And if you'd like to check me out over on my Instagram page or my TikTok, it is at BreyonnaFaye as well. As always, the first thing that we have to do is prime our eyelids, and again, I'm just going to be using my Anastasia eye primer. And I'm just putting a little bit on the back of my hand. I know some people apply to their eyes first, but I personally prefer to do it on the back of my hand. And I'm just taking a little bit on this brush from Sigma. It's an E50 large fluff. And I'm just going to be packing it right on the eyelid up to the brow. Anywhere that we are going to be applying shadow. I'm kind of having a hard time figuring out like which shade I want to go in with first, because some of them in here kind of look like they have a similar tone. But you know what, let's just go in with this really light one. It is called Bougie. And I'm just going to be taking it on this BH Cosmetics number 5 brush out of the Lavender Luxe set. I gotta say that did a whole lot of nothing. I wasn't sure if it would like oxidize when I applied it, because sometimes Colourpop shadows do oxidize. So I'm actually just gonna do a second layer just to kind of see what happens. Oh yeah, she definitely builds up, but this shade is very, very light. It's actually a really unique shade too. I don't know if I have a shade like this in my collection, honestly, because it's kind of like a bright white, but it has like this light blue kind of like grayish undertone to it. And when I'm applying the shade too, I'm kind of like winging it out underneath my brow bone right in here, because I do want to do a different type of eyeshadow look today. Dang, like that Bougie shade is so light, but now we're going to start like really deepening things up and, you know, kind of getting the shape where we want it to be. So I'm going to go in with this shade right here called Bebe. And I'm just taking the shade on this brush from Colourpop. It is an E23, and it's kind of like one of those pinch blending brushes. And I'm going to be taking it the long way. And again, I'm just going to be like pushing this like right into that crease, just to really get that pigment right in there, because I want a lot of definition with this look. And then I'm also taking it right underneath my brow bone. You can kind of feel it if you take your brush. You just go right under it and kind of like flick it up. And I'm just going to do a second layer to build it up a little bit more. And again, you want to keep on winging it out just so we have a lot of definition, so when we cut this area, it's going to be like super sharp looking. This shade though really reminds me of Mark though, because he calls me Baby. I don't know where he even got that from, but he calls me it. And you know, most people call people babe and like honey and stuff, and he's like, Baby! And it's like, okay. But wow, like that's actually a really cool color though. Again, like these kinds of colors in this palette are ones you just never really see all that much. Because it seems like companies really are into, you know, warm tones and like orangey colors. But it's just really nice to see something different for once. Because I don't know about you guys, but I'm just really sick of like the basic color stories I've been seeing recently. I just can't get over the nice blend that I'm getting with this shade. Because I have used shades very similar to this in the past, and they gave me like harsh line city, and they were so hard to work with. But it seems the buildable formula that Colourpop is having now really makes it so the deeper shades are super easy to work with, and honestly, I would actually say that they're very beginner friendly too. So if you're somebody that is a beginner and you want to get into smoky eye looks, I would definitely recommend checking out Colourpop's formula. And to help deepen things up just a little bit more, I'm going to go in with this matte kind of like deeper purple shade, and it is called Stunner. And I'm just taking it on this teeny tiny little blending brush from Luxie. This is a 237 blending brush. And again, I'm like jamming this brush into my crease because I want a lot of definition. And I will say it seems like this shade is a little bit more pigmented than the other two have been. Because I mean, like, this is only one dip. Like, look at how nutty it is. I'm just going to do a second layer of this shade. Oh yeah, this shade's really unique too. And it really pairs beautifully with the other two. Like, it deepened it up without looking like a black shadow. And again, it is giving me absolutely no issues. I don't have any harsh lines. It's just really nice and smooth too. Is it me or is this palette giving you like stormy winter ice type of vibes? You know, like at night where it gets like really like cold and frigid and it's like an ice storm? Like that's kind of the vibe I'm getting from this palette. But off camera though, I am going to cut my crease and I'm going to do like one of those like winged out ones. And then afterwards, I'll be right back to finish up the lid. Now today for the lid, I want to do something different than what I normally do. I have an idea in my head and I think it's going to look really cool. But first things first, I'm going to take this thicker paper because I hate using tape and stuff like that. I know a lot of people like to use tape with their eye looks, but I don't want the premature wrinkles of using tape, so I like to use paper instead. And what I'm going to do is line it up on the outer portion of my eye, kind of where I would do my wing liner. And then I'm just going to take a flat shader brush and start packing this color on this outer portion, leaving about 1/8 of an inch gap from the top. So you kind of want to do something like this. And then I'm bringing this color about 1/3 the way inwards. And you can see I'm leaving a little bit of a gap where we initially cut that crease, about 1/8 of an inch. And if you go a little bit above, we can always fix it too with a little bit of eye primer or concealer. When you're doing this, I do recommend to use a flat shader brush, you know, something that's like super flat, just so you can get really nice up and in there. And you don't have to worry about getting shadow where you don't want it to be. And then for the center portion of the lid, I'm going to go in with this shade in the center called Noble. And I'm just going to be using a different flat shader brush and packing it on the center third of my eye. In the pan, this one looks like really purple, but if you like tilt it, it almost has like a brown undertone. Oh yeah. It actually looks more brown when applied than purple. So just keep that in mind. Actually a really interesting shade though. It kind of reminds me of that blue-brown pigment that everybody went wild for years ago. But instead, it's like more cool toned. It has more of like a purple look to it. And again, I am leaving a little bit of a gap on the top, just so we have like that really cool kind of like line effect. And then I'm just taking like whatever's left on my brush and feathering it into Grand. And then for the center third, I'm just gonna go in with this shimmer shade called Ritzy. And then using a different shader brush, I'm just going to be packing it again in that center third of the eye. And I'm also leaving that gap as well for the little line. You know, I was not expecting this shade to look like this. I was expecting it to be a little bit more brown, but it's actually fairly bright. It almost looks kind of like a champagne in a way, but it has just like a little bit more of like an interesting look to it. And this one to me is also more sparkly than Noble was. And I'm just going to do a second layer. Oh yeah, this one is definitely way more metallic. Like to me, this is Colourpop's extra shimmer formula, you know, like the ones that are like that wet metallic goodness and they just have a lot of shine to them. Whereas Noble is more of like a wet sheen. It's pretty, but it just has like that everyday glam type of look to it. I don't know what it is about the color story of this palette, like, I don't know, it just has like a really unique vibe to it. But off camera, I did take a little bit of my ABH eye primer with this brush from Sigma. It is an E11. It's just like a really fine liner brush. And what I did is just took a teeny tiny little bit of it and traced over that line just to make that line really sharp and just extra bright, just so it pops with the eye look. But off camera though, I am gonna like clean up this fallout situation because those shimmers do kind of crumble a little bit. And I'm also, you know, going to apply like my complexion products and stuff like that. And then afterwards, I'll be right back to finish up the look. This look is definitely like extremely cool tone. I paired this Makeup Forever liquid lipstick in Rosewood. I think it just really brought out the colors of the eye look. But now we're gonna start working on the lower lash line. And I don't know which colors I wanna go in with. You know what, let's mix Bebe with Stunner and do like a 1-to-1 ratio. And I'm just going to go in with this super tiny little shader brush from the Madison Beer collection from Morphe. And I'm just going to be smudging this mixture right underneath my lower lash line. And when I'm doing this, I'm doing a back and forth motion. And I'm also making sure that I'm connecting it with this outer portion too. This will kind of like wing it out. So I'm actually going to take a little bit of Bougie, that whitish blue shade in the palette, and run it right along the edge of what we just did, just to kind of like soften it a little bit. I'm using this eye shading brush from Lavish. Just a small little shader brush. So for the inner corner highlight, you could go in with Ritzy, but honestly, since we used it on the lid, I don't really want to use it in the inner corner. And also, I want something a little bit brighter and lighter in color. So instead, I'm actually going to be going in with one of my favorite highlighters from Colourpop, and this is the one called Uric Etch. I'm just saying, if you've never used this highlighter before, girl, like you are missing out. Like, it is so good, especially if you like icy champagne highlighters. It's honestly stunning. It literally goes with any eye look too. But I'm just taking it on this little Kaleidos pencil brush. It is called an S5. And I'm like really packing it in my inner corner. You see what I mean though? Like, she's so blinding. I have it on my face right here too. Like, it's just literally my favorite. I'm gonna be so sad if Colourpop ever discontinues this one. I really wish that this palette had a true inner corner highlight, because I feel like it would have just brought it to a whole other level. You know, maybe like a champagne like what we have going on, or like an icy blue with like a little hint of gray. That would be really, really cool too. I don't know what it is about this palette, but it just really makes me want to play around and have fun with it. And I don't know if it's because of the packaging or the color story of it, but it just has such a unique and different vibe to it. It just kind of like sparks some creativity in me. So let's talk about the formula, and overall I had absolutely no issues with any of the shades in here. The mattes in here, they're more buildable with certain shades, and other shades in here are extremely pigmented. It kind of just depends. You know, this first one that we use called Bougie, you're looking at, you know, about 3 to 4 layers to get it to look like it does in the pan, which I don't think is bad for a lighter toned shadow. It just kind of depends on what you like and if you want to build up your shades. But this one called Bebe right here, you have to do about 2 to 3 layers, which is pretty average for Colourpop. However, this one right here called Stunner and this one called Grand, they are extremely intense. You almost have to be a little bit careful with them because of it. Like, if you're a beginner, I don't think you're going to struggle with the deeper shades in here. You might be a little bit overwhelmed with the color story being so dark, but trust me, it is not hard to work with. As for the shimmers in here, I only used 2 of them, but overall the formula is very creamy and very pigmented. This one right here called Noble in the center is more of a wearable shimmer, so it has that like pretty wet sheen, everyday glam type of vibe to it. However, the shimmer shade right here called Ritzy, this one, the name literally fits it. It is extremely metallic, it has a lot of shine and a lot of sparkle to it, and if you're into those really extra shimmers, you will love how it looks on the eyes. So when it comes down to it, would I recommend this palette to you guys? And honestly, I cannot recommend this one enough. And I would actually probably say this is one of my favorite 9-pan palettes Colourpop has launched in a really long time. There's just something so unique and different about it. Like, the colors in here are those types of colors you just don't see all that much. If you're like me and you love cool tone smoky eyes, I think you're going to absolutely love this palette and you're going to really fall in love with it. And overall, it's just a really unique palette to have in a collection, especially if you like cool tones. But if you're somebody that doesn't like cool tones, or if you're somebody that doesn't like dark smoky eyes, you're not going to be happy with this palette, because the colors in here are extremely dark and they have like that grungy feel to them. I also feel like this palette would be really good for those of you that are looking for a winter palette that isn't like your typical winter palette, because the color story again is really unique with this one. But yeah, so let me know what you think about the look, and also let me know if you picked up any of the palettes from the Dark Blooms collection. I know a lot of people were really interested in the Baroque one, but as always though, if you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and also give this video a like. And if you'd like to check me out over on my Instagram page or my TikTok, it is at Breyonna as well. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye!